The world's longest undefended border is now the site of an unprecedented crisis. On July 31st, Canada closed the Alaska Highway to US-bound traffic, cutting off Alaska's only land link to the lower 48. Ottawa cites trade disputes and security concerns, escalating tensions. The US response was immediate, with former President Trump condemning the move. Trucks with food and medical supplies are stranded, families' travel plans are canceled. Officials scramble for solutions as the world watches this high-stakes standoff. The US-Canada border, stretching over 5,500 miles, has long symbolized peace and partnership, especially for Alaska. Alaska's connection to the lower 48 depends on this border, making the highway through Canada essential. For decades, seamless travel and trade fostered deep economic and cultural ties between Alaskans and their Canadian neighbors. The current closure is a shocking break from a century of cooperation. Towns like Haines and Skagway rely on cross-border tourism and commerce for survival. The border's closure threatens to unravel this delicate balance, putting livelihoods at risk. The Alaska Highway, built during World War II as a joint defense project, evolved into a vital economic artery. Until now, using it as a political weapon was unthinkable. The border, once a symbol of unity, has become a line of contention. Leaders must draw on the history of partnership to find a way forward. Rebuilding trust will be difficult, but it's essential for the future of both nations. The legacy of an open border is at risk, and decisions made now will define the relationship for years to come. The challenge is clear: restore cooperation before the damage becomes permanent. The COVID-19 pandemic exposed the fragility of Alaska's connection to the rest of the US. In March 2020, both countries restricted non-essential travel, interrupting the seamless flow for the first time in decades. Essential goods still moved, but isolated Alaskan communities like Hyder faced anxiety and logistical hurdles. During the pandemic, cooperation prevailed. Officials worked together to keep vital supplies moving. That spirit of dialogue contrasts sharply with today's unilateral closure. The pandemic showed that, even under pressure, collaboration could keep the border functioning. Now, with the highway fully closed, Alaska faces a disruption far worse than during COVID. The experience should have prompted a deeper conversation about long-term security for this vital link. Instead, the return to normal erased memories of vulnerability. The current crisis is a stark reminder of how quickly Alaska's lifeline can be threatened. The lessons of 2020 have been forgotten, and the consequences are now severe. The closure's impact is most severe in small, isolated Southeast Alaskan towns like Haines, Skagway, and Hyder. For these communities, the highway is a lifeline for food, medical supplies, and access to health care. With the road closed, residents face shortages and costly, unreliable alternatives by air or sea. The economic fallout is immediate. Tourism collapses, businesses lose revenue, and the summer season is in jeopardy. For many, this closure could be the final blow after years of pandemic struggles. Beyond economics, families are separated, and residents traveling in the lower 48 are stranded. The psychological toll is immense, with anxiety and uncertainty growing. The border, once part of daily life, is now an impassable barrier. Hyder, Alaska, illustrates this dependency. Its 60 residents rely on Canada for schools, emergency services, and daily needs. The closure is an existential threat, severing them from basic necessities. The plight of Hyder mirrors the broader crisis. Geography has created a unique, now perilous, reliance on a foreign neighbor. The human cost is profound, and the urgency for a solution is growing. Alaska's communities are left waiting, isolated, and uncertain. The Alaska Highway is more than a road. It's a critical backup for Alaska's supply chain. Most goods arrive by sea, but the highway is essential for oversized cargo, household moves, and tourism. It provides redundancy. If maritime routes fail, the highway becomes Alaska's lifeline. Its closure removes this safety net, increasing vulnerability to supply disruptions. In 2024, maritime shipping accounted for 90% of Alaska's freight, but the highway still moved over $2 billion in goods. The route is vital for interior communities and the oil and gas industry. Beyond logistics, the highway is a symbol of Alaskan identity and adventure, a rite of passage for residents and tourists alike. Its closure is not just a logistical problem, it's an attack on a symbol of connection and freedom. The loss is both practical and deeply personal for Alaskans. The stakes are higher than just transportation. They're about identity and resilience. Alaska and its Canadian neighbors share a deeply intertwined economy. Trade between Alaska and Canada exceeded $4 billion in 2024, supporting thousands of jobs on both sides. Alaska exports fish, minerals, and energy. It imports timber, manufactured goods, and food from Canada. Tourism is a shared industry, with the Alaska Highway as its central artery. Canadian and Alaskan businesses both rely on the flow of travelers and goods. The closure halts this mutually beneficial exchange, hurting communities in both countries. Canadian trucking companies and small towns along the highway are losing revenue. Economic pain is not contained by the border, it spreads across the region. Historically, leaders have prioritized cooperation, knowing shared prosperity depends on it. The current standoff is a dangerous departure from this approach. Reopening the border is not a concession. It's essential for the region's economic health. The lesson is clear. In this interconnected region, cooperation is survival. This crisis is the result of escalating trade tensions, not a sudden rupture. Earlier this year, as the U.S. considered new tariffs, British Columbia threatened tolls on American trucks using the Alaska Highway. The toll threat was a bargaining chip, not a practical policy. Implementing it would be costly and complex. When talks stalled and the U.S. imposed tariffs, Canada escalated by closing the highway entirely. This transformed a trade dispute into a full blockade, with far-reaching consequences. The shift from threatened tolls to a physical closure was a dramatic miscalculation. A toll left room for negotiation. A blockade is much harder to walk back. Now, both nations are locked in a dangerous standoff, with national pride making compromise difficult. The road from negotiation to confrontation was short, and the fallout is continent-wide. The lesson escalation can quickly spiral out of control, with real-world costs. The Alaska Highway closure has triggered a severe diplomatic crisis between the U.S. and Canada. Washington views the move as hostile, undermining decades of trust. Formal protests and high-level talks are underway, but public rhetoric is sharp and positions are hardening. The crisis now tests the very foundation of the U.S.-Canada relationship. Prolonged conflict threatens supply chains, defense cooperation, and even global stability. Restoring cooperation is urgent. Both nations face domestic pressure to stand firm. Skilled diplomacy is needed to find a solution that allows both sides to save face. Quiet negotiations and a gesture of good faith, like reopening the highway, are essential first steps. Both sides must make concessions to de-escalate. The ultimate goal: repair the relationship and restore trust for the future. The stakes are nothing less than the security and prosperity of both nations. The Alaska border crisis exposes a fundamental vulnerability in America's infrastructure and alliances. Relying on a foreign-controlled land route to reach an entire state is a strategic liability. The immediate priority is to resolve the standoff and reopen the highway through negotiation and compromise. This crisis began as a trade dispute and escalated into a full closure, severing Alaska's lifeline and triggering diplomatic turmoil. The region's economic interdependence means the fallout is widespread and severe. Looking ahead, the U.S. must reconsider its reliance on a single route. Calls for an all-American alternative will grow. Building such a route would be costly and complex, but the risk of future closures may outweigh the expense. The crisis forces a reckoning. Can the historic model of a friendly, open border survive in an era of rising nationalism? The answer will shape North America's future for generations.